Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Bear Share Show. This is your host, Andre Matoyer, and today I am joined by a special friend of mine, the lovely, talented, and the great Joe Martone. How are you?
Hello. I'm good. I'm relaxing in rainy Los Angeles. We actually have rain today. Who knew?
Really? That probably means it's coming toward my way,
Oh, you're going to
since it
have a
usually
lot of fun
does.
with it. Tell it I said hi.
Yeah, I will. And thank you, Joe, again for coming on. Today, I really just wanted to talk about something that I mentioned briefly in my intro, where I said that I was a gay bear. And unless you know what it is, most people don't know what it is. And so I figured it wouldn't hurt to have a friend of mine come on, which is you, Joe. So thanks again. And let's just kind of run down like what a bear is, like what's it about, what are bears, why are we bears, just to kind of give people a sense of like what it is that we are and why we represent ourselves that way. I know that you have been in the bear community for a while, so why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about like your knowledge of bears and how you came on to finding it yourself.
Well, for the members of your audience who might not understand what a bear is or looks like, I need them to close their eyes and just visualize James Corden, but if he was actually interested in dudes and not just a flamboyantly camp straight man. That's a lot of the bear community. There are a lot of guys like that,
Oh,
self-included.
that's really
Imagine
good.
if James Corden was gay, he would be me. Let's be real. Not that I have any
That's true.
not that I have any ego about that whatsoever. But yeah, a bear is generally
No.
someone who is, thank you. A bear is generally someone who's bigger, often hairier.
Mm-hmm.
Facial hair and body hair are major factors. They usually help. And they are very, very homosexual and inclined to make out with dudes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the hair thing is an interesting point too. Not all bears are hairy. I know me and you know some that aren't. I'm not exactly super hairy myself, but you did mention the facial hair. I think that is something that is pretty common with a lot of bears
Yeah, body hair
as
tends to
well.
be a bit subjective, but facial hair is usually a part of
Sure.
it. There's wiggle room though. Like if you're chubby and you don't have hair, you're welcome. We're not going to kick you out.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm allowed to stay
Yeah,
here. I appreciate
you
it.
made the guest list. You made the VIP. Congrats.
Just barely. Yeah.
Hey, just
So
barely.
I know that you know a little bit more than I do about the history of gay bears. Can you share what you know about it?
The bear community, as I understand it, was formed by a lot of men who didn't feel themselves fitting within the typical gay paradigm. Because a lot of gay people,
Exactly.
certain kind of gay people, they're usually seen as these very slim, kind of pale Caucasian twinks. And unfortunately, a lot of us do not fit that lifestyle or that imagery because we like food and we
Right.
like our bodies and we like those who have bodies.
Very queer eye, right? Like kind of like the stereotypical, like thin, like the old queer eye. I
Yeah,
think more
people
than
would
the
look
new
at
one.
Carson
But
Kressley
yeah,
and think that's what a homosexual is.
exactly.
And for a lot of us, that's what
Yes.
homosexuality was growing up. Like,
Right.
when you and I
Hmm.
were growing up, because I imagine we're not very far apart in age. I don't think we've ever formally had the
No,
discussion, but
we're both in our
yes,
30s,
we're both in our
so
30s.
we're not too far
Right.
apart.
So when
Yeah.
we grew up, homosexuals, there were a very limited range of what you would see. There were people like Carson Kressley and the Queer Eye guys who are typically pretty thin. Really, the
Yeah.
only gay man who was something resembling my size was Nathan Lane, and he wasn't even very explicit about
He,
the parts he played, with the
he
exception of the birdcage.
Right. But he was also very flamboyant. So like
Very.
I know for me, for example, I know a lot of bears, one of the things too is they don't often like it's hard to tell if they're gay because they don't fit that
Right.
mainstream. So I know for me, when I was first looking into the bear community and what that whole thing is about, like I had a hard time sort of identifying or even figuring it out because I didn't feel like I was as flamboyant as the people I saw on TV, like the Carson
Mhm.
Kressleys, and that made it difficult to figure out where I fit in,
Right. It
you know?
was, I relate to that on so many levels because I grew up in a Southern California
Yeah.
community where I literally did not even get to know other out gay people until I was really comfortably in college. And almost all of them were near exclusively skinny.
Okay.
There was only one other like
Yeah.
chubby gay guy. The rest were all very skinny or slender or somewhat like slender with a build. And that's just what the image
Yeah,
was.
absolutely. Yeah. I actually 100% agree with you. And that's exactly what happened with me. My high school was there was a large religious population. I'll just kind of leave it at
Oof.
that. So while there were some open gay kids, there was very few and far between. So it was pretty much like not possible for me to come out as gay. And I distinctly remember thinking, I don't fit any of these stereotypes. Am I even gay? That was really confusing. And then also I just felt like it was just so rare to find someone like me. It was like next to impossible. Like I was a unicorn.
I
It was
know
a lot.
exactly how you
So,
felt. I mean, my high school was Catholic, so everybody was
oh,
like as
okay.
much in the
Yeah.
closet as they could be, and those that weren't were pariahs, and we couldn't get attached to them. You kept that locked down.
Yeah, and I agree. It wasn't really until college that I even tried. But even in college, I struggled to find people that I would represent or like kind of put in as a bear. Did you have more luck? What
I went
school
to
did you
Cal
go to?
Poly Pomona, which was a really nicely diverse
Okay,
campus, but
nice.
there wasn't a lot of terms in like physical diversity when it came to the gay people I knew there. Like, yeah,
Got it.
I
Okay.
wish I could have known more different types of gay people going there. Uh, but in my later years, someone mentioned Growler to me. And for those that don't know, Growler is
Yes.
the gay bear version of Grinder. It's a hookup app,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to get into that. I think, a couple years of college, and that was like a giant culture shock for me. That was huge. Oh my god! Like literally
Right?
going on that, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden getting flooded with messages and people saying like, "Hey, what's up? You're beautiful. Come hang out." And I'm like this like little 20 something, maybe 23 at the absolute most, being like, what do I do? What is this? Why are you saying this to me? It was
Right.
a big shock because I had never ever been able to appreciate myself that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then to see other people appreciating me
Right.
was just like I couldn't even process it.
Absolutely. And also too, like it was one of the first times because I remember using Growler the first time in 2011, which I can't
Oof.
believe was also 10 years ago. But it was one of the first times where someone hitting on me was actually someone that I also liked, like could see myself liking back. You know what I mean? It was finally
Oh,
someone
right?
who matched my type. And it was so refreshing. I was like, oh, they do exist. Like I just felt like it was going to be impossible to find people that fit sort of that mentality and
Definitely.
fit that community.
That was a big
So
introductory part of
huge.
it, the sense of, oh, there are different kinds of people
Yeah.
who appreciate you for you. And
Mhm.
it
Yes.
allowed me to even start appreciating myself. It's actually the inverse of, what RuPaul says, if you can't love yourself, how are you going to love somebody else? There is something to be said for if someone else starts to love you and see things in you, it's a weird, almost reverse path to confidence.
It's a
Yeah, you
start.
have to start
Yeah.
somewhere. And it doesn't come as easily as,
Yeah. You
yeah,
have to start
it doesn't
somewhere.
just come as easily as self acceptance mantras. You do have to, like, sometimes you need that little spark, that kindling that says, you are good enough even if you can't see it.
Bears
Mm.
being bigger, um, we tend to be chubbier, thicker guys who, in the normal sense, are overlooked when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
beauty. So we aren't used to feeling like liked or hit
Yeah.
on. So it's definitely a new experience for us, for sure. And so that was something that it definitely made me
Mm-hmm.
feel good when I was like, oh, like you said, I am pretty. I can finally meet someone who is my type, and that feels good. And eventually that's a start, like you said, to definitely starting to improve
Oh
your own
yeah, it felt
self-esteem.
great. It felt
Um,
pretty
yeah,
damn awesome.
definitely.
And it's
Yeah,
only grown
absolutely.
because in our time we've seen the bear community very much grow and grow to become this bigger, more encompassing thing.
So what have you seen as like being one of the biggest changes maybe over the last 10 years in the bear community? Because I know a few, so I'm curious to
Let's
know what you
see.
think.
I think we're starting to let's see, how do I put this? There's a lot of directions where I can go with this. I know we're
Yeah,
trying to amp up that shift towards inclusivity. I know there's more people who have talked about discrimination. It happens in every community, and the gay community is no exception. So I love that we're getting more aware of what we need to do. Like the bear community, see, the bear community, when it began, it was seen as this like niche. We're not the West Hollywood twinks. We're in our own little corner. But as it started to grow, more people who fit a different kind of body sort of started getting advertised and being sold as this is what a bear is. And they were the muscle bears. They
got
were
it.
just like
Got
muscular
it.
guys who in the 70s or 80s would have just been
Yeah,
called muscle boys or muscle daddies with hair. But then they
right.
said, no, we're the bear community now. And they started selling themselves toward us. So it caused this like odd shift in perception and dynamic. This group that was all about bigger boys finding themselves was now about bigger boys
Yeah,
pining for the muscle guys. And it's just like, that's not what we're about. So I think there's an essence of trying to get back to our roots.
absolutely. Because bears weren't really that
Nope.
popular at first. Like they weren't really liked. You know what I mean? Like they were just literally sort of
Yes.
the outsiders, that sort of the miscellaneous group that fit in, wherever they couldn't fit in, they just fit in
Right.
there,
Oh,
that kind of
totally.
situation. So yeah, I've noticed as just being gay in general has become more accepted, and people have started to come out of the closet
Mhm.
more. Um, and also that recent trend with dad
Yes,
bods,
the
right?
dad
Like
bods.
just people being more
Yep.
comfortable with themselves. I've noticed the bear community get
Ooh.
bigger.
In every
I've met
sense of the
several people
word,
over the
get
past couple
bigger. Yes.
years. But I've met a lot of like recent, like newly gay people, like within the past 5 years, who either were married before, or and you talk to them in a lot of similar situations. They didn't even know what a bear was, or like that they would even be welcome in the gay community,
Mm-hmm.
feeling ostracized. But it's great. It's great seeing the community
Oh,
grow,
absolutely. It's nice seeing all these
which
people who
is
feel more comfortable with themselves and their bodies. Like I have a friend, I dated him, this was years ago. I would say about almost 5 to 7 years ago when I dated this guy. He liked me and we had a lot in common, but he wasn't very comfortable with a lot of things. And then he just reached out to me within the past year and was just like, hey, the reason I was so hesitant on that date is because I had my own body image issues. I wasn't comfortable with like people who were happy with their weight. And I didn't even realize that was an
yeah.
option. So not only has he like gained a couple of pounds, he feels much happier, and he started to like try and reach out and connect and be part of the bear community, which is an excellent journey.
That actually reminds me. Have you ever heard the phrase "coming out twice"?
Yes,
Like,
yes, I have. I'm very familiar.
where, yeah, where you basically like you come out as gay. All right, great, but then because there's that distinction between mainstream and the bear community, there's people that feel like they have to come out twice and say they like bigger
Mm-hmm.
guys, they like bears, because it's
Oh,
another stigma
absolutely.
against it. Which, yeah, I never liked that, but
It
it is
is
very
true.
true.
And what's cool is really meeting people who are not only comfortable and confident about it, but it's you can like big guys and be any shape. Like you can be big and appreciate the bigness in another person. You can be an otter, that's
Right.
a skinny hairy boy, in case those of you are wondering. You can be, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yes,
Oh,
there
the
is.
animals. Yes, so
Welcome
many.
to the gay
So
animal kingdom. It is a safari. There are so many different dimensions of what beauty can be. And you know what I think is a big part of that?
yes.
The internet. The internet's a huge part of it.
Oh,
Well, I think
explain.
there's something to be said for the Tumblr generation, for people who like got acquainted with Tumblr and these sort of image sharing websites where you could
Got it.
find what you were looking for. You could find these other venues,
Yes.
and there wasn't just one
Yes.
mainstream image of
Yes.
beauty dictating what you want. I know a lot of people attributed that to popular icons like Lizzo, saying that a part of her success is the
Okay.
fact that people not only just appreciate her for her amazing talent, but also they see her beauty because they're online. It's not just one rigid like TV or movie version of beauty. We're looking and we're seeing beautiful people who are expressing themselves all around the world. And the bear community is a big part of that. That's how I got
Yeah.
comfortable too. I started realizing I had something to offer
Yeah.
because I was one of those many denizens on Tumblr taking a selfie and seeing what would happen.
I think you're spot on too, because nowadays, whether it be Twitter even now, or Tumblr, or Instagram, you find an image, you click on that image, it links you to other images, then you see more and more and more, and then you just go, wow, there's this whole other world I didn't know. Just start
It's
kind
a
of pulling on that
beautiful,
thread,
wonderful, sexy
and you get to
world.
see,
Mhm.
yeah, it is. Um, so I will say another thing too that I've definitely noticed over the past 10 years. It's been there
Mhm.
longer, but the events. So for those that don't know, one of the things I love about the bear community is
Yes.
our sense of community. And periodically throughout the year, there's multiple events that people, they take time out of their schedule, they
Hmm.
vacation, they plan for it, they go out. And essentially what they are these big parties with bears celebrating bear life
And I
and all
guarantee you,
sorts of
two of the
crazy
main
fashion.
constants: swimming pools and food.
Yeah, it's like pizza
Yes.
by the
Oh,
pool.
it
Perfect.
is wonderful. The no body shame here.
But yeah, there's no body shaming. It's
Mhm.
just you can be yourself. Bears have a pretty good reputation for being kind and fun. I know every time we go to hotels and events, the staff always loves us and looks
That's
forward to the
because
next
we
time we
have
come back.
disposable income.
Every group has its ups and downs, but I think overall we are a pretty positive group, and I think that's contributed to why our group has been growing and why people are starting to recognize
Totally.
bears
A
more
lot of the
and more.
community in the best ways, when it
Um,
is at its best, it is a celebration of the self and of others. We lift each other up.
what do you foresee going into the future of the bear community? I know we're kind of coming out of the pandemic. People are being a little scared about maybe going back to those events, but I'm not just talking about like next year, but what do you kind of foresee over the next 10
Well,
years
hopefully
for the bear
more
community
more
going?
events, really.
More, more pizza parties by the pool.
I think more and more people are going to approach this idea that you can love someone at any size and be very comfortable with it. That's going to be the more common thing.
I completely agree. And I think if we're going to add to that and we summarize the bear community in just a simple thought, not only is it a great group where we encourage you to love whoever, even if they're a little different, I think the bear community does a great job of supporting people in themselves to allow them to be themselves and to be a little different. And not only are you joining a fun and awesome community, but it's a global community. And I think there's a strength in numbers. And I think there that to anyone who's listening who might find themselves unsure of where they fit in the LGBT community, I think you might find a good home within the bear community.
Well, hey, Joe, thank you so much again for coming on. I really appreciate you taking the time to join my podcast and talk about what a bear is. It's been great.
Hey, thank you so much, Andre. This has been a blast. I'm happy to be part of this primer. This is the tip of the iceberg, and I think you and your listeners are going to have a lot of fun exploring this community. And anytime you want me to come back, I'm there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Joe. And for those listening, thanks again for listening to another of the Bear Share Show. And I look forward to the next episode.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
Bye.